Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This is one of those videos that I've been meaning to do for quite a while. It's come from Chris at boobip.com. Now, you'll have seen Boobip on my channel before. I had a look at the 2 meg RAM board there that you could add to an A500 or A500 Plus and, you know, go up to about 3 meg. I think I've got 3 meg on my 500 Plus. So yeah, Chris has been working on different products here for different systems. I've also got some Boobip ROM and RAM chips for the BBC. I filmed some of that stuff, I just haven't had a chance to finish editing it, so that will probably come up soon as well. But what these are, and the silk screen there kind of gives it away. Can you see it says 27C400 EMU? It's an emulator, a ROM emulator. So he's got a little micro on there. It's an ST chip, I think, and he's perhaps got some level translators or something. I'm not sure where the actual ROM is stored. So it's got a flash ROM under there, and again perhaps level translators or something. Perhaps not all that, you might have something else on there, I'm not sure, because that flash is probably going to be 3.3 volts, but yeah, nevertheless, it's a really nice tidy board. Now, I've shown a similar sort of product on the channel before, the one from Solid Core, which I think was based on Kipper 2K's design. But this is a little bit more feature-packed, actually. It's a much better rounded product. And obviously, I think the ones from Solid Core, I'm not sure you can buy them anymore. I'm not sure. I haven't seen them for sale in a while. I know Kipper disappeared from the scene, didn't he? Decided he'd what to, I don't know, do other things with his life. So you can't get products from Kipper anymore, I don't think. So you connect to a PC via the 5 pins there. Actually, you need to connect, via serial. I'll show you. I've got a little adapter board that plugs into that. And here's an earlier one. This is what I meant by I've been meaning to do this for a while. He sent me this about, 18 months, 2 years ago. Now you can see I had a bit of an accident with this. There are some little pads on here that you can solder wires and things to do various things with this. And there is a jumper, I think, is at J2 down there, that if you bridge that, you can plug this straight into a Rev 3 or Rev 5 board and it will work. It does the A17 mapping for you. So that's a nice feature. And there are other things on here as well. There's another jumper up there, not sure what that one's for. But nevertheless, there's a pad there in the middle, I think it is, which was for the reset. So you could, the idea being, you plug this into your A500, you put various ROMs on it, it holds more than one ROM, say 4 of them for example, and then you connect this to reset somewhere, either on the keyboard connector or is it pin 5 of Gary? I think it might be. And then when you hold down Control Amiga on your keyboard for about 3 seconds and let go, it moves up to the next ROM within there. So, you know, I think when I set this up originally on here, I had like 1.2, 1.3, 2.04 and 3.1. And I could just toggle, up depending on which ROM I wanted. Now, when I first tested this here, I wasn't aware that there's a way to configure this so that it remembers the last slot you were on. And every time I would use this, obviously, you power cycle it, it would then go back to 1.2, and it drove me nuts. Eventually, having spoke to Chris about the firmware update that is provided for the latest versions, these are Rev Ds, I think, and that latest Rev D firmware, which I have updated on here, saves the position, I think. In fact, the original version probably saved the position. I just wasn't aware that there's a feature that allows you to either specify which ROM it defaults to when you power it on, or it'll save the last ROM you're on, and then next time you power it on, it's on that ROM. Yeah, so coming back to what I was saying about programming, and the reason why I'm showing you this older one here, you can see I soldered on a 5-pin thing there, and I've got one of these little is that micro USB? It's not the mini one, is it? It's like really thin and flat. So I think you can get one of these with this when you buy that, but these are pennies to buy, literally. And you just literally, plug that in there, and then I can connect a USB cable up there to the PC. Use terminal software or something on the PC, a serial client. I'll show you that. I use one with Windows 10, but you could, use different serial software there for different operating systems. And you'll get a menu. A menu comes up, and you can just communicate with it, press the numbers, for whichever menu option you want, and you can upload a file. You select a file, upload it, it goes across the serial cable, and it gets flashed to the, the device under there. Now you can see with this one here, you can see I've got an extra socket underneath. That's something I'd recommend when you do one of these mods, unless you've got a turn pin socket on your Amiga motherboard, because the round turn pins will widen the sockets, the gaps in the socket, and then from there on in you can have problems putting an actual mask ROM back in. But if you use a socket like this under there, you avoid that problem completely. Of course, it does raise the whole thing up, and if you've fitted a thing like this here for that, it raises it up even further. So those are things to think about, but you don't necessarily need to do that. I'll show you that when we do these. When I take one of these to the PC in a minute, what I'm going to do is just put that in there, connect up the cable, and just kind of leave it sat like that. The weight, if you get it just the right angle, sometimes that way might be better, because the weight of the cable on here will mean that the connectivity is good enough. If you just, don't disturb it, connect up, send your file across, and then you should be all right. So, just a push fit like that loosely, with the weight holding the some pressure down, is often enough to program these. And I did use this one that way for a number of months actually before I decided actually to get it more reliable. I'm just going to solder a socket on there like that, and then it just makes it a bit easier. But these are the sorts of things you'd program once and then probably never revisit it really, unless you've got an updated version or something. So I think the way that he ships these out, they have Diag-ROM on, and we can go and test that. I think before we go and program them, we'll go to take these over to the A500. I bent a pin on there. Look, that's probably me for just dropping it a minute ago. We'll take this over to the A500, perhaps test it with a A500 Plus or something first, and then we'll go and program it up, and I'll show you some of the features and things within the menu. Before we do that though, the other thing I will point out is you can join two of these together. So if you've got an A1200 or an A4000, it needs two ROMs because it's a 32-bit system, you can join, I think it's A18 and A19 or A19 and A20, I forget. I'll correct that when we get to that point. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but you can, flash the low ROM to one, the high ROM to the other, and you can do that for all four slots with different versions of Kickstart, and you just join those two wires across between them, and they will sync. They'll be in sync, so when you do the Control Amiga, they'll both increment to the next ROM accordingly. Of course, that's a little bit fiddly. You need to make sure you're putting the right version, the right ROM in the right slot, etc. So for the purposes of this, I'm using the A500 Plus board you saw me fix. It's featured in so many videos this now. There's the solid core one. You can see it's literally just got the ROM chip on there. So the thing that stands out straight away, there are no level shifters on this. I'm not sure whether this solid core one here needs level shifters, but you can see it's literally just the flash ROM. That might be a regulator or something, I'm not sure, and there's very little else on there, just some passives and stuff. That could even be logic, now I think about it, because this one works off reset as well, but it might not be. It might be something else under there that's doing that. So yeah, this is a much more basic product, as I said. It's I'm not sure whether you can still get them. So I've switched the A500 Plus off there. I'm just going to take the mask ROM out. You can see I've got a turn pin socket on this. I think I covered this in my 500 series actually, that I swapped the socket out for the very reason that when you use round pins and stuff on these, it won't damage it. So in theory I could take the extra socket off. Now I'm going to show you this with the one, and the wire goes towards the top there, actually the program header goes towards the bottom I think, if memory serves. Yeah, I'm going to show you just using this one, so strictly speaking I don't need that additional socket there. Of course the problem with turn pin sockets is it can take a minute or two to get a chip nicely aligned. There we go, that's in. Now this reset wire, as I say, if you had an earlier version of firmware you needed to stick this on the reset, I could actually remove that. I could remove that, and I'm not sure if I fully explained, I pulled the pad off for the reset, so that's why this wire is going round a pin there and down to a pin on this chip here I think. That was my attempt to repair that, and it does work, but now it's got the new firmware I don't even need to worry about that wire. I can literally either remove it or just leave it flapping in the breeze and it's fine. So you can see I've switched it on, it's just starting to boot, and as you can see that's on 3.1. Now that is the way I've configured this. Once I updated the firmware on that, I set it so that 3.1 would be the ROM that it defaults to. And I think actually it might remember it, so let's just try that. Let's do Control Amiga just for a few seconds and let go. That should go right back round. Now I'm not sure what the first ROM, oh that's Diag-ROM. Yeah, there we go, that's Diag-ROM. I recognise that straight away. So the last time I updated this I stuck Diag-ROM on there. But that is amazing, being able to just swap ROMs like that without any messing around. Having Diag-ROM as one of your ROMs there is super useful. Now let me see, if I power cycle it, is it going to remember Diag-ROM? I'm not sure whether I've got this configured that way at the moment or not. So I'll just give it a few seconds and then we'll switch it back on and just see what that... oh yeah, there you go, it's remembering the last ROM look. That's fantastic. We'll try that again just for good measure. So I left it a bit longer there, good 30 seconds or so, switch it back on, and all being well, there we go, diagram again. So we'll just let that boot, and then I'll do Control Amiga again. I'm not sure what the next one will be, could be 1.3. Right, so let's do that again, Control Amiga, just hold it down, let go, see what we get now. That's either 1.2 or 1.3, isn't it? I'm guessing it's going to be 1.3. But the nice thing with this is it means you can flash your own ROMs. You don't need an EEPROM programmer. You just need the cable, that little adapter that's got the socket on, which you can get with the ROM, I think, from Chris Boobip. And you can program your own ROMs. And the nice thing with things like this, you might think, well, I've got 1.3, I'm only ever going to use 1.3. Well, what you could do is stick 1.3, diag-ROM, and a SCSI version of 1.3. There are modified versions of 1.2, 1.3 that provide some of the drivers and fixes and things from some of the later ROMs. So you could have a SCSI bootable version of 1.3. That's just a soft reset. That should just go back to 1.3 again. You do have to hold Control Amiga down for about 3 seconds or so. Yeah, so soft reboot is working, and if I hold down for 3 seconds again, let's just see what happens this time. Because I can't remember what the next ROM on here is. It could be 1.2. It could even be 2.04 actually. Yeah, there we go. Kickstart 2. So that's really sweet. And if we just go around one more time, we should be back to 3.1. There we go, 3.1. Fantastic. So I'm going to move this off the floor in a sec. I'm using my PS4 controller cable here. It's exactly the right size. It will plug in there like that, and then we can plug that into one of these here. And as I say, I'll sit that on the table, and under the weight of the cable there, it's making a good tension on those connections. I can just plug that into the USB port. Windows should pick it up as a serial device, I think, and then we can go into the serial software. So when I first plugged it in there, we got these two messages: USB serial device. In fact, they've gone now. They've timed out. God, I hate Windows sometimes. You saw them anyway. And it shows the serial device up here. If we just go into it by double clicking, you see it says connected. And if I press H here, it gives us our main menu. So we've got I for firmware info. Let's do that. And then it tells you the device, the STM32, that's the processor that's on the MCU, the version number of that, the version number of the CPLD. So it does have a CPLD on there. Obviously copyright 2020 by Chris Smalley, that's the Boobip chap. Firmware CRC, and then different IDs of things there, EEPROM type, so you can change that from 27C400 to another type, I think, and the current ROM selected. And obviously some of the information there about perhaps some open source stuff or something like that. If I press H again, get the main menu. So you've got P to program, or you can program and verify. You can just verify. Copy, I'm not sure what copy does. Let's just have a look at that. So you can copy from one slot to another to avoid writing twice kind of thing, you know, uploading something twice. Let's see if we can quit that. H. What else we got? Chip arrays and arrays. Yeah, so arrays is going to be to erase a particular slot. Chip arrays is going to erase all of the slots, all 4 of them. And C for CRC, that's presumably going to give you the CRC for the ROM that you choose, you know, the bank. W switch ROM, let's see what that does. Switch ROM slot. Yeah, so you can actually switch, I think, at this point here, which ROM is selected. Let's escape that. H. Now, I'm not sure about these two here. Maybe Chris can post in the comments. Override SP GPIO and override R GPIO. No idea. Use Intel Hex. I'm not sure, actually. That's going to be the format of the file that you're uploading, presumably. O for option menu, let's have a look at that. So you've got some nice options here. You can enable pull-ups on A17, A18 and A19. You can see these are defaulted here to yeses on 18 and 19. And I think 18 and 19 are the two wires you join together between the two chips if you want 2 of these in a 1200 or a 4000. But it's interesting you can do that, and you can, and I'm not sure what this is yet, enable. Perhaps Chris could comment on that as well. ROM size 512K, and then you've got initial ROM, so this is where you specify when you power it on which ROM you want it to default to. So you've got autosave initial, ROM switch pull up, wireless ROM switch, yes. This is where you don't need that reset line. On the Rev D firmware now, I no longer need that wire. You can just plug it in and it works. It automatically detects when you do Control Amiga, Amiga. And obviously you've got the option to enable the LED, yes, USB factory. No idea what those features do really. So I'm going to go, main menu is the hi-hat symbol. So back on the main menu again. In the service menu, this is where you can program the CPLD with a new version of the firmware there. You can also upgrade the firmware on the STM32. I did that. You just use the STM32 Cube software. It's dead straightforward. It's not really worth me showing that. I might do if there's another update at some point in the future, but the way things stand now, the firmware is rock solid, and it's got all the features and functions and things you would dream of, really. I can't really think of anything where this would need a change to, a future firmware. And I think this is where, when you do the STM32 upgrade, this is where you do the reset to bootloader, I think. So yeah, that's how you update that. If we go back to the main menu, and the final option there is A for advanced program menu. And if we have a look at the menu options, yeah, the advanced program menu, it looks almost the same, doesn't it? Just some different options, like dump as in cell hex and mirror section. So yeah, there's some features there again I'm not familiar with, but you could always ask Chris. So let's do P for program. Which slot? We'll do slot 1 because I think slot 0's got diagram and slot 0 at the moment, and you can choose the size there: 128K, 256K, 512K. Now the thing that might catch your eye is that 128K. There are no 128K ROMs on the Amiga, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think there are, unless there's 128K in the Amiga 1000 as default. I'm not sure, because it obviously loads Kickstart there from floppy, doesn't it, into RAM. So it might be a bit different on the A1000. But you could use this device in other machines. Anything that uses a 27C400, you could use it there. But anyway, we'll go with number 5, which is 512K. Byte swap. Let me think about this. We'll choose yes, because the ROMs we're going to program will probably need byte swapping. Slot 1, file size, byte swap, erase, and then it says send binary. So this is where you now go to the file dialog. How was it gone? Up there, send a binary file. Amiga Kickstart ROMs, and we'll do 3.1 ROM open. So that is now sending the binary, as you can see. Doesn't take very long at all. There we go, that has now done. So all being well, provided I did need to byte swap that, and I'm pretty sure I did, we could now disconnect that, connect it to the Amiga, and we should have 3.1 on there as well as a diagram. Yeah, there you go. So you can see I've removed the one with the wire that we had before, and this one did have just diagram, and we can power it on. Let's just see. It should go to diagram because that's how I left it. Yeah, and you can see that is diagram in slot 0 there. Now we programmed slot 1 with 3.1, so we'll just wait for that to come up just to make sure it's working. Yeah, it is. So hold down Control, Amiga, just for a few seconds, and let go. Hopefully we'll have 3.1 now. Yeah, it's not doing the flashing like it was, so it's not going in diagram there. It's just looked at the floppy drive. There you go. 3.1. So it really is that simple. So that really is it. One thing I will show you, sometimes getting chips like this out when certainly when you've got a turn pin socket, it can be a bit fiddly, but if you use some pliers, just gently squeeze, see that, you can kind of lift it up on one side. Don't go too high because you'll obviously bend the pins, but yeah, as you can see there, the pins are all nice and straight. When you get a screwdriver in there, like, you could scratch the PCB, but just using the pliers like that when there's a gap, it's nice and easy. And as you can see, we definitely didn't bend the pins there. Anyway, that's just a little tip for you. So these are fantastic. He's got a number of these in stock at the moment. He's built a large batch up. Now, the previous runs have just sold out instantly. I'll show you on macro. I'm amazed how well manufactured these are. Just look how small the solder points are on these chips and how nicely assembled they are. It is incredible. He's done an incredible job on these, particularly those STM32s. The pin pitch there is so small. That really makes the stuff I've been doing on the terrible fireboards, which I struggle with a little bit, look easy, really. I'm amazed he's managed to get those on there. And there's a quick look on the underside, so you can see that's an issue D. But yeah, those are very nice. If you want one, head over to Chris's website. I'm not sure how much they are. I'll stick the cost up there. Maybe even consider buying a pair if you want them for a 1200 or a 4000. He's just built a batch of these, but I suspect they're going to sell out super quick. And my reasoning behind that is he's done a few runs of these over the last year or two, and every time within, like, I don't know, 48 hours to a week, they've literally all of them have gone. And then obviously there could be a large gap in between, you know, the next run. So before I wrap this up, you can see the pads here. You've got A17, A19, I think A18. So you could literally, you know, join A18 to 18, 19 to 19, I think, to join them up. So I don't really feel like I've done justice to these boards, actually. There are a few photos I want to show you. You can use this in other systems, and it all comes down to, well, setting up. You've got to be fairly tech savvy to understand some of the more complex features. You know, as I went through the settings there are things that I sort of understand what they are, but there's a few things I'm like, well, I'm not sure how I would use that or where I would use that. And I think this is an important point that Chris pointed out, that he feels that only tech savvy people should consider buying one of these. But hopefully, as I showed you, it's pretty easy to program. So I would say don't be put off buying one of these if you're not very tech savvy. You just need to get a micro USB cable, ask him to provide the little adapter with the USB port, and you can see that it's very easy to program one of these up yourself without an EEPROM programmer. But if you delve into some of the more complex features and things, you can do a lot more with these. I'll stick some photos up here. You can see it's working with the BBC Master. You do need an adapter. Chris said he's got some of those. So again, when you purchase one of these, you can ask him if he's got one of those adapters spare. And you may need to do things like modify your ROM depending on what system you're putting it into. And you can see it working in an Archimedes 4000 here. Chris also said in theory you could get this working in a C64. And I think the SP pin, I think you can route, there's an LED, isn't there? Mentioned in the settings there's an LED. I think you can route that to the SP, it's a spare pin, and then you could have a wire coming off. And I think he was saying that it will flash the relevant number of times depending on which ROM is selected. So the number of features and functionality built into this is incredible. I have really not demonstrated very much other than just getting it up and running really easily with an A500 or a 2000. But hopefully it's given you enough of a flavour there to understand what you might be able to do with this. Something else I was just thinking as well, it's worth getting one of these even if you don't want to use the ROM switcher, just because it comes with a free version of Diagram. You know, that doesn't add any additional cost to this, it's distributed freely. But it means you've got Diagram on a device where you can change the jumper there so that you can run Diagram in a Rev 3 board or a Rev 5 board. So yeah, I think it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much to Chris for sending these over to me. I'm very sorry it's took so long to get around to this. So only a short video. I do hope you found the video interesting. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.